Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I'm your host. And on today's episode, we are talking about all things East Texas Showdown for 2024. And I've got a fantastic panel assembled today to help me answer questions that came from the participants of this year's East Texas Showdown. So on the panel this week, we have Harrison Kroos, who last year did the Showdown. And we have Vince Colvin, who did the Slowdown last year, and Asia Roberts, who did the Lowdown last year. And so we have, if you're not familiar, the East Texas Showdown has 3 different routes, all in one weekend, different distances, and we have a rider from each of those categories represented from last year's East Texas Showdown. So if you are participating in East Texas Showdown this year, this episode is absolutely for you. In fact, it is almost mandatory listening. We're going to be discussing a lot of important facts and just interesting information that'll help you have a successful ETS. But even if you're not doing ETS this year, you may find this episode informative if you just like going bike packing. We're going to be talking about a lot of tips about camping gear and how to deal with dogs and other information that you might find helpful. And also, you don't have to participate in the East Texas Showdown to take advantage of this information. All of the routes from the Showdown series are available at texasshowdownseries.com. They're online, they're free, and anybody can go ride these routes anytime. I always love it when I see people pulling the route files and just going out there on their own little adventure. That's always really exciting. So that is what we have for you on today's episode. And one quick note on the format of today's show. The first part of today's episode is going to be with the panel, and they're going to be taking turns answering the questions that you, the ETS participants, asked. And then the end of the episode is going to be me just addressing questions that I felt comfortable tackling on my own and didn't really need the entire panel. Some of them were more directed just to me as the race director. So that is the overall format of today's show. But first, we would like to thank all of our East Texas Showdown partners, starting with Chumba, Hand Up Gloves, Kuat, Mulberry Gap, Umbras, Old Man Mountain, The Rativist, Ruby Coffee, Stans, Thompson Bikes, Woom, and of course, the Bullet Grill, which is the host of East Texas Showdown. All right, thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you for being here. Let's get into my episode with the East Texas Showdown panel for 2024. But first, let's have Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes for Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
All right, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for jumping on to talk about all things ETS for 2024. I told you in the email that you weren't the experts, but I lied. Y'all are the experts. Just kidding. So just going to have you guys answer some questions from your experience over the previous years. We have on the panel today somebody from every single category. So from the Showdown, we have Harrison, who's representing the Showdown category. So Harrison, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? What's your name? Where are you from? And what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so Harrison Kroos. I live here in Austin, Texas, and I work for Woom Bikes here in Austin. If somebody isn't familiar, we're a kids bike brand. Our U.S. headquarters is located just in the heart of Texas.
Awesome. And next up, we got Vince. Vince, what's your name? Where are you from? And what do you do for a living?
Yeah, I'm Vince Colvin from Chumbo USA Bikes. We're based here in Austin, Texas, and last year I did the showdown, the slowdown. This year I'm aiming for the showdown, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So he's representing Slowdown this year, and maybe you'll glean some advice from Harrison on the showdown. All right, Asia, where are you from? Well, yeah. What's your name? Where are you from? And what do you do for work?
Sure. My name is Asia Roberts. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is where I live. I work in learning and development as an instructional designer for the Nature Conservancy. And I've done the Slowdown and the Lowdown, actually. So 2 years.
Oh, so you did the Slowdown first, and then this last year you did the Lowdown?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, great. So you're not from Texas, huh?
I'm not. No, I was living in Houston for a while, and that's definitely how I got into the whole ETS thing. But left Houston in July of 2023. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're familiar with Texas riding.
Yeah.
All right. And also, I wanted to just real quick acknowledge that Woom Bikes and Chumba are both sponsors of the East Texas Showdown this year, and wanted you guys have some stuff for us for the raffle. So, first of all, really appreciate all support. It's kind of crazy in the cycling industry right now, and we really appreciate everyone that can help us put on these events. So, Harrison, what are y'all going to be doing for the Showdown this year?
Yeah, so for the previous 2 years, we've done a Womb Now, which is like our urban commuter dynamo hub bike. I think this year I'd like to change it up and maybe do something other than the Now. I don't have exactly picked what that'll be yet, and I would love to work with maybe that winner to maybe figure out what's the best bike for their rider going to be. So I guess a Womb bike. Maybe just put one caveat on it. It won't be our electric e-bike, but we'll have a Womb bike for the winner of that raffle drawing. And I'm excited to work with that person to get them the best bike for their rider, whether that's their kiddo or niece or nephew or what have you. So,
yeah, that's been really cool, y'all. But we've been able to give away a lot of bikes specifically to parents and people who will actually use them. So that's going to be awesome. Vince, what about y'all? What is Chumba going to be doing this year?
Yeah, we have some new T-shirts that we'll be bringing, some hats, and then I've got a handful of nice bike packing bags, a few different things, likely from Bedrock that I'll be bringing up for the show too.
Oh, awesome, man! Well, some new Chumba drip, so you're looking fly out on your bike.
The hats are pretty cool.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. I'm always jealous. The raffles are always pretty good. I'm just man, there's some good stuff in there. So it'll be another good year, I'm sure. Well, let's talk about each of your personal approaches to the ride individually. Whenever you did it, were you going fast? Were you going light? Were you touring it? Were you stopping to smell the flowers? Were you stopping to pet the dogs? What was your personal approach to the route that you took on? Asia, let's start with you on the Lowdown.
Yeah, my personal approach for the Lowdown was definitely stop and smell the roses, make friends, which I did. Met a lot of people. I always meet a lot of people doing the ETS events. And yeah, I was just out for a good time. I definitely packed heavy, definitely with the intention of sleeping a lot, eating really good food, and just having a good time. Yeah.
When you say you met people, do you meet other riders or locals or everyone?
Riders. Yeah. I ended up riding with a lot of the Cycle East crew during the Lowdown, and it's just an event where I feel I was out for 2 days and just kind of riding with the same group of people, and just started to feel like I'd known them for months or something, making friends. And then we had that camp out. What is it? It's Friday night, right? We had the camp out with the bonfire and everything, and just met tons of people. In fact, I met Michael, who was doing bike mechanic work last year doing ETS, and he now lives in Albuquerque, so we hang out all the time. So
cool.
those friendships have continued for sure.
That's awesome. So you camped at the group campsite. So did you do the lowdown in 2 pushes the first day? Because the group campsite is basically halfway. So did you do?
It's at Ratcliffe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first day I rode to Ratcliffe, and it's a long day. I mean, what did I do that day? Maybe 80 miles or something. I can't remember. And then in the morning, as you know, it was pretty muddy. So it was just kind of a morning of like getting through a lot of mud. So kind of some like harder riding than it had been at least the year before, which we had like perfect, amazing sunny conditions. So last year ended up working out. Like it was just kind of rough in the morning with the mud, but, went to Ratcliffe Lake Recreation, whatever it is, the first night, hung out, did the bonfire, had some beer, slept like a baby, got up the next day and wrapped it up. Yeah, just that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the lowdown works well if you can as a 2-day ride. It's a long 2 days on the bike, but I also kind of think that that's a good opportunity in that environment to like kind of stretch your legs and maybe push yourself further than you might be used to for just like an overnighter. Did you find those mileages to be pretty difficult or overall kind of manageable?
I guess I'm trying to see how I would say this. Like, yeah, if you do the lowdown in 2 days, especially if you don't have a lot of experience bike packing, like it's a push. I mean, I want to say I did 80 miles that first day. It's definitely a push. It wasn't a walk in the park by any means. I was dead tired by the time I got to Ratcliffe. But I think if you do it in 3 days, it would definitely be a much chiller and more, I don't know. It depends on what your definition of more enjoyable would be.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think both options would be great. I don't even remember why I decided to do it in 2 days. I don't remember.
Probably for the beer and the bonfire.
Probably for the beer and the bonfire. That was like my prerogative that year, was just like I hadn't been riding very much. I think I was signed up for the Slowdown and then changed it to the Lowdown and was just like, this year is all about, it's definitely a challenge. The Lowdown is by no means like, it's still plenty of miles, but it really does give you the opportunity to have fun. I did the Slowdown too. And that was actually super fun. I mean, I'm like, I want to come back for more, was after my first year, but for the Lowdown, you definitely have a lot more time to just talk to people, enjoy the beer. And Ratcliffe, I will say this too, actually, I really like Ratcliffe as a campsite. I think that's a great place to camp.
Yeah.
It's
beautiful there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a really nice place. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really like a jewel in the middle of that forest. I mean, it just kind of, it's really pretty. So good promo for the encouraging people to make the group camp. I like that.
And the gas station there, I can't remember the name of it, but the folks there are so nice. They're just like the nicest people. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the gas station, but it is the gas station that's right by there. And they're always so friendly. They're literally making you sandwiches and food to order, and they want to talk to you and hear your stories. And
they do.
Some of the greatest experience on the route happen with those interactions with the locals. I think we always hear that. And the locals like message me and stuff, and they get excited. So it's one of the really cool things about the route.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Vince, what was your approach to the Slowdown last year?
I would say I really wanted to embrace the namesake of the event and just take it nice and slow. But to cover the mileage, you're still riding all day if you have that approach. So I I broke it up kind of as like, well, maybe I'll make it 100 miles the first day, and I made it to, I think the Mission campsite, which is like a 90 something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great. I mean, that was a good all day ride. I got in there at dark. There was plenty of food options on the way. And, but the pace of that allowed me to kind of ride with other people and chat and have it be, really fun at the start when everybody's all together and just get to, enjoy all that before you kind of get split up and dispersed. There's a pretty good sized crew kind of all landing there too. So that was pretty cool, just like rolling up and seeing a whole bunch of other people doing the event, and everyone kind of had different experiences and challenges through the day. So it was a nice chance to kind of do that, but push past where the group campsite was to try to knock more of the route out. And for me, that was helpful, like psychologically, just to, I was very tempted to stop at the group campsite, but I was like, man, I really want those other days to be easier, so I need to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that worked out great for me. And then the second leg of the ride, I made it over to the site near Kennard, which is like that primitive campsite there. And that was awesome. It was really pretty. And, you're not too far from a gas station if you can make it there ahead of time. We got there just as they were closing, and they were nice enough to stay open for us.
Oh, cool.
And but that campsite was beautiful, and there was nobody there, which was also kind of nice at that point because you're so tired. I don't want to talk to anybody anymore. I just want to go to bed.
Yeah, I don't know how many people camp at that campsite. I'll shout it out real quick. Let me see on the map. On the Lowdown, on the Slowdown, it's at 1 mile 193. Did you camp next to the little lake there, the little pond?
No, I got in at dark, so I couldn't really see what was going on. And I was there with Jacob Luce, and we just found like a couple nice trees and big long logs to set up kind of like a dinner station next to and camp out, and just woke up and enjoyed the beauty of the spot. It was a sleepy little place, and you don't have to go. It's nice because you're like right off the road. You don't have to go like far into the campsite and like had a bunch of miles. It was just, couldn't have been more laid back of a spot. So I definitely like that place a lot. That's kind of like a dream location to get to, maybe in the Showdown. I'd imagine if you're doing like a big day, that'd be a pretty sweet like first campsite.
Yeah. The other nice thing about that, one thing to note about that campsite, it's the first one that you enter once you re-enter the Davy Crockett National Forest. So you've gone through a section that's, private land, and it's kind of your first option for some really safe, good dispersed camping in the National Forest where, no one's going to bother you. And you're right. It's a good spot. I'm not sure how many people stay there. The other one you mentioned, Mission Tejas, is a really beautiful park. Did you get to see it during the day?
A little bit. I saw enough to know that there were some trails there, and we were all like, I wonder if we could tie that in and still make it just technically stay on route, because it looked like a pretty fun place to ride bikes.
I thought they were only hiking trails, but I might have to revisit that. I'll have to look.
Yeah, I didn't look too close to check the rules, but just passing through, it looked like fun.
Ah, interesting. Pro tip, I'll look into it. Race director noted.
The only downside of that one is like it's the end of the day and you descend like way down into the campsite. So in the morning, you start with like just a big like slap in the face to get out of there with the climb.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Yeah, it's a very fun and fast descent into camp, but it's a slog to get out of there, and it's a kick in the face. I've definitely been there many a times riding out first thing in the morning, and it's like, all right, here we go. We're in it now. Good stuff. Yeah. All right, Harrison, what about you on the Showdown? What was your approach?
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer other than to say I was really just riding to ride and to get to the finish. I remember this previous year, I had an idea of maybe trying to finish in like 2 days and, really kind of push myself. But as Asia mentioned, that morning was kind of rainy. And I remember Vince riding with you a little bit at the beginning there too, where we were going through that sand section, and the wind went immediately out of my sails to a little bit of a degree where it was just like, how can I get out of this and feel better? And hey, huge quick shout out Michael. I love you lots. I'm so bummed that you get to hang out with him now. That's my dude. But yeah, it was really just like, let's just see what we can do. Let's just see how far we can go. Let's see what happens. I think, I had something, I think, booked at mile 200 or something like that I didn't end up using. And I only ended up going about 140 miles that first day to Jacksonville, which was fantastic. It was so nice to get Whataburger and get a warm bed and, shower in the morning before getting my continental breakfast and whatnot.
So you stayed in a hotel in Jacksonville at 140?
Yeah, it was like the Truckers Inn or something like that.
How would you rate the Truckers Inn?
Wow, it was everything I needed. It was I guess, you know what? The one thing, there were no towels, so I took a shower and I got out, and there was like a washcloth waiting for me to dry off with. So, other than that, it was fantastic.
That's funny. I guess as bikepackers we can't complain, but
yeah.
You were happy to have a shower, I'm sure.
It was lovely.
How did the rest of your race go? Like, did you do any more camping, or did you push all the way to the end?
Yeah, so it was super cool. That next day, I linked up with Drew and a bunch of other people, and we ended up doing 200 miles that day and made it all the way back to Bullet Grill. And we all just, I think, slept in our respective cars that night, and then woke up and just did the death loop first thing in the morning, and we're done by like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And it was beautiful. It was such a lovely morning. I feel like I slept in like, it was so cold that Saturday night, I remember, and just getting back into the Subaru and just curling under a blanket in the fetal position for probably about 4 hours, and then busting out of there to finish up the race. But it was that second day was, I mean, truly one of my favorite days of riding I've literally ever had. It was unbelievable.
Oh, that's lovely. What contributed to the 200 miles? You think you're just feeling fresh after a night's rest and had your energy, or what?
Totally. And there was a pretty solid group of us who kind of coalesced by, we just kept picking people up. It was me, Drew, and Zach, and then Daphne. It was the 4 of us riding until 3 in the morning, and we just kept each other going. And it was so cold that night that it was, if it had been warmer, I'm sure we would have just decided to cowboy camp somewhere and then do the extra whatever miles it was. But it was so cold. It was like, we should really get back to what we thought. We wanted to do the Bullet Grill anyway and sleep in a car or whatnot. So, being cold kept us awake. I think there's a question about how much, food and stuff. There was a gas station every like 30 miles. So we were just pounding Red Bulls every couple hours or something like that. So it was a really fun day, but by the end it was just like, let's just get somewhere where we can turn on the heat or something. I don't know. Yeah,
absolutely. It's easier to keep going and stay warm. One thing I want to mention while you mentioned stopping at the Bullet and sleeping in your car, another question that we got was about if the Bullet Grill is still neutral support, and it is. So if you're on the Showdown, you can sleep in your car, you can get food out of your car and put it on your bike. I mean, it's a neutral support for everybody. So that's going to stay the same. And I like that format. I think the death loop sounds really ominous, but the way you did it, Harrison, if you do it during the day, it's really nice. It's not bad at all.
It's lovely. I mean, first light, it was just, I was like crying. It was just so pretty. It was just I was just so thankful to be like out there at that moment. It was so cool. And then getting some of that Bullet Grill coffee and a taco before finishing it out. I mean, what better way could you start a 70-mile ride like that?
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Next up, we're going to shift into talking about bikes and gear. Obviously, we got a lot of questions about all of this. So the first question is, what bike did you ride? And let's combine here what tire you used and how well that setup worked, your bike and tire combination worked. Asia, go ahead. We'll start with you.
I was on an All City Cosmic Stallion, and I was on 42-inch tires. I cannot remember what exactly I was on, other than that. And setup, oh man, what did I have? I'm trying to remember. Like the full setup? Is that the question?
Oh no, just mostly the tires for now. Like, so you said you rode a 42-inch tire.
Yeah.
Was it an aggressive tread or pretty minimal, and how well did that work?
I think it was a pretty aggressive tread. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's just what I rode to for the Slowdown the year before. I remember it working well. To be honest, I'm trying to think what I would have done. I don't think I would have done anything different. I mean, it basically was like, unless you were just on absurdly fat tires in the beginning for that mud, I don't know what you were going to really do. It was, I think that's a really good size, excuse me. And, you know, it was kind of brutal that Friday morning in the mud, but after that, it all just worked out. I rode that bike and that tire size twice for the slowdown and the lowdown.
Yeah.
And both times it worked out well for me. Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Vince?
I rode our Yopon model, which is a dirt drop mountain bike, and I set it up with drop bars and rigid fork and pretty much full bag set, but really light on the handlebar bag just to keep things kind of more on the minimal side. And tire size, I did Vittoria Mescal 2.1s because my goal was really just comfort, and I hadn't ridden that bike in that kind of application yet. I'd mostly just done single track bike packing with it. So I kind of wanted to gain more experience with that versus going to a more gravel side. Just with being able to recommend stuff to folks and getting a sense of how much comfort versus how much distance is easy to cover on that bike in that format.
Yeah. So what do you think? How did it perform? Would you recommend that tire size, especially because that's a little bit more of an aggressive tread? There was mud this past year. So yeah, would you recommend that? Did that work? How'd that work for you?
I mean, I found when I went through the mud, most of it for me was more of a sandy kind of mix. So I didn't really ever have any like buildup on the bike. It was more just like a little added drag because the tire size. It was definitely way more tire than you need. You know, this year coming back, I'll be riding on a 700 by 40 with a different mileage goal. But you know, if you're trying to do 80 to 100 miles a day and you want comfort, I think like anything from like a 1.9 to a 2-inch would be pretty sweet, just to be comfortable and more relaxed, and you know, less attention given towards steering and, you know, moving away from obstacles and staying upright and more seeing the sights, but certainly slower, you know. But
Yeah.
It was the Slowdown, so that's how I planned it.
Yep. I think that's a perfect answer. Good advice. What about you, Harrison?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be the narrow guy here. I mean, I ran 38C Maxxis Rambler, which is like, they're like gravel tire. And I ran the same tires the first year I did it and the second. So by last year, they were beaten into like suppleness. It was so, they rolled so well. It was really, really nice. And I mean, I don't think on that route there was ever any moment that I felt like I was truly under biking on 38s. And to Vince's point, there was never any buildup in that first sand section because it wasn't like, you know, that peanut butter mud that we always talk about. One thing on top of it too is I actually ran even tubed this last year. It wasn't even tubeless, and I never had a puncture or anything. So I know that's like sacrilegious at this point, but I was able to run some Victoria latex tubes, and they did just fine over all 400 miles.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I love that. So a range of tires, and I think y'all hit the range perfectly. Anywhere from a 38C up to a 2.1-inch tire is probably a really good sweet spot for this course. It's not too gnarly, so it's more about the kind of ride that you want to have, how fast you want to go, what your comfortability is with their tire choice. And to y'all's point, I think overall, our soil around here is very sandy. We have sandy loam soil, and we don't generally get that peanut butter mud that you hear about it, like maybe Mid-South or something. So it really doesn't clump up as much and really get stuck in the tread the way some other riding in other areas does. So that's a good point. What's next on our list? Tires, always a popular question. Tires, we'll get like 100 questions what tire to run. So hopefully that helps. You can run anything.
Mine were Terravale Washburns. I just asked. I couldn't remember.
Oh, Terravale Washburn. Yeah.
I was like, wait, what was I on again?
So we talked about where you camped, but what was your camping setup? This time, let's start with Harrison. We'll switch it up. Harrison, what was your camping setup?
So I'll talk about the last 2 years. So last year I didn't really do any camping where I stayed in a hotel in Jacksonville and then I slept in my car night 2. Year 1, I slept in my hammock, shout out Hammock, both nights, both Friday and Saturday night. I will say, if there is any amount of wind or if it is kind of chilly, a hammock, you'll feel pretty exposed because that wind will come up and cut right underneath you. You're not insulated by any ground underneath you. And at the Central Texas Showdown this year, I got just blasted with wind one night. Like it was the opposite of cooking. It was just freezing me from underneath in it. So unless you're going to bring some kind of like down sleeping bag or comforter, or if it's warmer, I don't know if a hammock is probably the best sleeping thing out there. You might be better off just in a bivvy on the ground, because at least then you have the dirt insulating you from everything around you.
Yeah. From a access to trees standpoint for hammock camping, how was that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember night 2 last year. I slept at Ratcliffe, and there were 2 perfect trees right by the water. It felt kind of serendipitous that I was always able to find a tree that was about 2 trees about 10 feet away from each other. The thing about that, though, is if you've been riding all day and your brain is completely fried, your bandwidth for finding trees and setting up the loops and all that is difficult at best. So it can definitely be another thing you have to worry about, is finding trees and the right distance. And then, oh my gosh, I put the feet up higher than the head and now my blood's all rushing to my head all night and stuff like that. So it definitely adds a layer of complexity. And if you really want to make it hard on yourself, I mean, go for it.
I'll advocate for hammocks. I'm a hammock camper almost exclusively when I can. And I think it's like anything. If you get really comfortable with setting up hammocks, then your familiarity with it will kind of like at this point, I'm not as good at pitching tents. So I think you're right. You have very good points. And I think depending on your level of comfortability with a hammock, like you don't want to test it on one of these routes because they can be really cold. They are a pain to set up if you don't know how. It's much different, obviously, than a tent. So if you're used to hammock camping, if you have a good level of comfortability with it, I do think that this route is good if you're a hammock camper and that's your preference, your preferred way to sleep. Is that fair, Harrison?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point of don't go out and do it like a bunch of times beforehand. That way, if nothing else, it's muscle memory when you're setting it up and you don't even have to use your brain really. It's just your hands can take care of it.
Yep. Perfect. What about you, Vince?
I used a Six Moons tarp tent, which I threw in instead of the bivvy since we had the weather being kind of rainy. I'm not a huge fan of being in the bivvy if it's raining unless you have to. So the tarp tent gives you a little more room to kind of spread out your gear and, enjoy campsite a little bit. I was also, as a goal, I wanted to get a full night's sleep because, I wasn't really trying to cover, 180 miles a day. I was just trying to hit 100 a day. So with that, you can, have a breakfast. You can enjoy camp for a few minutes at least and not feel like you got to get up at the crack of dawn. At least in my case, that's how I felt. I use that with just probably a 30-degree quilt. And I had one of those ultralight climate camp pads, which I was testing out. I don't know about those. We don't know that. I won't be using that this year. I'll tell you that.
One with all the
Um,
cutaways in it, like the ultra
yeah,
light one.
yeah. I
Yeah.
just kind of like inherited it and was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. But though advertised for side sleepers, maybe not good for side sleepers. But if you're a back sleeper, it's actually really comfortable. And then just like a little Tyvek sheet for ground cloth, just kind of the same size as as the the quilt setup. And that works really well because the whole system is super light. It has like a carbon pole, and you basically put the pole in the middle, kind of off center it once it's up, and then pitch out all the corners. And there's even like a zipper to it, so it's just like a tent without walls and without a floor, basically. In the end, this year, just trying to be mindful of trying to cover more distance. I'll just bring a bivy instead, just so I can be real quick about throw it out, get in it, roll it up, go away.
Yeah. Less motivation to sleep in when you're stuck in a bivy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I kind of am having that moment where like, all right, every time I camp, there's like that time you wake up at like 3 or 4 o'clock and you're just like, I'm awake. Should I go to the bathroom? I decided that's the time when I'm just going to get on my bike and go.
Nice. Let your bladder be your alarm clock. That's a good strategy.
Yeah, you're waking up at that point.
Yeah, you might as well get going. I love it. All right, Asia, what was your sleep setup?
So I agree with Harrison as far as know how to set up your equipment before you take it out. I borrowed a one-person tent from my friend Emily Miller. And I practiced in the park actually a few times before I took it out and really wanted to make sure I knew how to set it up well. I don't remember what kind of tent it was exactly, but super lightweight, one-person tent. I had all the comforts though. I had the tent, and I've never actually slept in a hammock. I'm all about sleeping in a tent. I should give the hammock a try sometime, but I have heard from a lot of folks that they're pretty cold and I like to be really warm. So I'm always a little afraid of that. I had a sleeping bag, I think was like a 30-degree. That was probably way too hot for that night. I had a pillow. I had a really nice inflatable pad. I took all my warm, nice, comfy clothing. Yeah, I was definitely luxury camping that night. I remember I slept like a baby. And
That's doing the lowdown right. That's how you do it. Carry some extra stuff and enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was definitely out there to enjoy it. So I had a really comfortable setup. I slept great. Yeah.
That's good. There's nothing better than a nice sleep after like a really hard day on the bike. The worst thing is like when you can't sleep after you've worn yourself out and you're like, why? I rode my bike all day. I should be tired, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes, like the first night camping, I think. At least it always is for me, even if it's comfy. But last night, that time I got lucky, I guess.
Yeah, that transition into sleeping outside, you're right. That can definitely play a role.
Yeah.
So another question we got a lot was about food and water. So I'd be interested to hear like how much food and water you carried and what your strategy was for resupply, how you thought resupply was on your route, that sort of stuff. Harrison, you get to go first. I was going to pick on Vince, but he's playing dad.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ETS has a really great dispersion of, gas stations and restaurants and pretty much everything you would need. There was never any point, I always try and plan out. I always have a little cue sheet of knowing when my next stop could be. I feel like there was never any more than maybe 70 miles was maybe the max between a refuel, right? So what that means is I didn't bring in like a hydration pack or anything. And I'm also going back to the riding question. I'm not the type of person who would want to skip gas stations or whatever it was. Even if it's a 5-minute break, I think that's worthwhile to take. So 2 normal bottles. I had 2, what do you want to call them? Feed bags on my bike as well. So if I ever wanted to have a Gatorade with me, or, I remember filling it up with Cheez-Its like 4 different times. That was my snack of last year. I would always have something with me as well. So it would always be like planning for, 75, 80 miles worth of food, which really isn't a ton. I'm not skipping anything, so I didn't have to like plan ahead or anything like that. I know a lot of other riders will think, well, if I can skip this next one, I'll save some time. And for me, it's all about the snacks. Really, that's the whole reason I do any of it. So I'm not going to skip that.
Yeah. So you only carried 2 water bottles?
Yeah, 2 water bottles, and then usually something in a pocket in the jersey, and then maybe something in the feed bag as well. So like they're bigger water bottles too, so it's not like no water. So yeah, usually about 4 bottles worth of stuff, which is about good for about 80 miles for me. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Vince, did you hear the question?
Yeah, that was an area where like it was kind of funny because I rode the whole first day with my friend Austin Walker, who works for us also, and he carried like no food, just snacks, and I had like enough for the whole trip probably. So I've had a few trips where I kind of ran out, or also like I have a few food allergies I have to work around, so I didn't want to be like unprepared. So I brought way too much food. Knowing the route now, I'll bring way less this year. There's just loads of options I felt like for resupply, and plenty of restaurants too. Like if you have enough time to get a sandwich and get a sandwich to go, and plenty of places like that. So this year I'll try to bring smart food but less food. I also brought a stove because I really love coffee and like a warm breakfast, and it was kind of colder. This year I'll kind of try to forego that luxury just to save on time and try to make the longer route goal of the showdown. And as far as water, in my frame bag I had like a 2-liter bladder, but I really prefer to drink out of just water because then I always kind of know just by nature like the pace of my hydration and how much I'm taking in. Kind of on the hourly. So in one of my 2 stem bags, I ran just a water bottle, and I also don't mind taking a moment. So every time that basically ran out, I would just stop, fill up to my bladder, and kind of take the sights in, have a moment, and then continue on. But the cool thing with that is then you're kind of always aware of how much water you have. Versus like in the bladder, you're just sipping, and all of a sudden, oh, it's gone. And I never felt like I needed more water there. I was always able to make it to a refill with that kind of like 95 mile a day pace that I was doing pretty much from like, dawn till dark. So yeah, I never ran out of water, and I never had to break up the filter or anything on the route there with that.
So, did you actually ever make the coffee with the stove and everything that you brought?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did it up. I had like one of those scrambled egg, backpacker
Mountain House?
pantries.
Oh, okay.
I had like two things, oatmeal, probably 2 cups of coffee. I had a great morning both mornings because I was like, I brought all the food. I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
I mean,
less
I
food
had
you got to
like
carry.
I had like a whole avocado, like all kinds of stuff. I think I started the ride with a sandwich. Like you got to start with all the perishable things first, and then just snack on those all day. Just really soak it in, enjoy it.
Vince, I have a feeling you're going to be getting some calls after this for people that want to go bike packing with you.
I like to try to figure the food part out because it's been my biggest challenge over the years to like maintaining nutrition on the ride and not get sick. And so now I've just learned like for me, I just have to keep eating, and I have to eat the right things, and still figuring it out, but
yeah,
it's going better.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Awesome. What about you, Asia? What did you do?
I'm trying to think of what I did for food, and I don't remember it being a big concern of mine. And I think that that's just because I would say in general on ETS, I clearly can't speak for the showdown, but for the slowdown and the lowdown, your resupply options are just, they're kind of perfect. I find they're plentiful, and you can pretty much get at least a gas station. I can't remember how every how many miles or so, but I remember I definitely wasn't very concerned about food for the Lowdown because there were going to be several resupplies. And so I definitely had like some nutrition on some feed bags. My friend had made all these like homemade like rice and beef like things to snack on just because I'm getting like really tired of eating so much sugar all the time. So we had like some homemade nutrition balls, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. I think I was just eating those and like probably some sort of like Cliff Bar kind of thing of different types of brands. But I definitely stopped for like a pretty hearty lunch at a gas station. I can't remember where it was. There were a ton of people stopped and had probably something like a corn dog and a piece of pizza or something ridiculous. But I do not recall, like, I didn't pack much for food, like as far as meals went. I knew that I needed enough to like snack on throughout the ride because I was 80 miles that first day. So I was definitely really hungry and needed something to fuel up on. And I do think that for me to keep eating, even if I'm not necessarily hungry, is huge. I kind of force myself to eat a lot when I'm bike packing. So I don't like crash or anything, but I didn't really worry much about like having like a solid lunch or dinner because I knew that I'd have stops for those. And then water, I also wasn't really worried about water. I probably only had like, I might have had like 2 liters on me, maybe. I don't even remember. It wasn't, I feel like for the Lowdown, it was like, I didn't have to have more than maybe a few water bottles on me. I would get to a stop and be able to refuel. And I wasn't in a huge hurry. I will say that one thing that I am really good at doing is stopping a lot. And if I stop too much, I will lose like, I don't know, I'll like end up at a gas station talking to someone for like an hour. And then I'm like, oh, I do actually need to get done with this ride at some point today, as much as I'd like to hang out and like talk to all these cool people that are out here. And then, yeah, at Radcliffe, we had tons of stuff. I mean, there's definitely beer. There was folks were sharing food. Someone was really nice and made me some really good coffee that morning. I didn't bring a stove. And that's the one thing I do kind of regret because I am a coffee drinker. So I didn't have coffee, but someone was kind enough to make me some the next day. Yeah.
That's a good point. Bikes or Death should bring a stove for the Lowdown campsite for the morning. So all the Lowdowners don't have to bring their own stove. That's a good, I hadn't thought about that before. That's why this is
that would
good.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. My perception of the route is that there's a lot of resupply for food and for water. It's actually pretty neat because the East Texas is pretty rural and remote for the most part, especially by Texas standards. But the way the route goes is it's popping you into at least a small town with a gas station or something. So it's nice to hear that everybody felt pretty comfortable from a resupply standpoint. And it's nice because you can just keep refilling. If you need a little bit more food, you grab a little bit of extra at the next stop and you pack some in your bag and you keep going. So that's good to hear. All right, last question on your gear. What did you bring that you didn't need, and what did you not bring that you wish you had brought? If that makes sense. I think I asked that question right. Vince, we're going to let you take it first.
The thing that I brought that I didn't need was the wrong gear ratio.
Tell us about it.
So I guess it's the thing I needed the most. I had my bike set up mainly for my mountain bike packing, so I was running the terrible gear for the route, like 32 tooth chain ring to like a regular SRAM eagle in the back, like a mullet set up with road axis shifters. And, it was super under geared for everything. Just, I could have gone so much faster and covered so much more ground if I had just had time to get a longer or bigger chain ring on there. So yeah, that was my main mistake for the route. But it's just what I had at the time was like, I'll go for it. It'll be fine. And but it definitely held me back from covering a little bit more ground, a little bit faster for sure.
Forced you to be more slow on the slowdown.
Yeah, that's the thing. I kept like, okay, internalize what this is about. It's all good,
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
My bike won't let me go faster.
Right.
What about the thing that you wish you had? Oh no, the thing that you didn't need. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing I didn't need, and the thing I wish I brought.
Oh, it's all in one. All right, cheater.
So that's how bad it was. So if you're on a mountain bike, go as big as you can. Run a 34 if you can, or a 36 if you're lucky. But try to bring a gravel bike would be my advice.
Okay, actually, yeah, that's a really good tip for the gearing. I've experienced. I did it on the exact same when I did my ITT attempt of the Showdown. I ran a 32 with a traditional mountain bike setup on the back, and it was definitely not the right setup. But I was exactly the same as you. I'm like, oh crap, I haven't had time to fix it, and I don't know if I can find a part. And I just ran it, and it was fine, but not the ideal ratio for sure. Harrison, what about you?
Well, I didn't, I brought the hammock last year and then I didn't end up needing it. So I had that and like a 20 or 35 quilt in there too, which definitely took up a lot of space. So, would have loved to not have that on my handlebars and feeling that weight in there, it was fine. It never really affected anything. I think one thing that I wish I would have had that this year I'm definitely going to bring, depending on how the weather's looking, is some, those like crunchy hand warmers. You can put them in your shoe or whatnot, just because honestly, even if it's not cold, if you're clipped in for 3 days straight or whatever it is, your feet get kind of beat to hell, right? So just some heat on them probably would have felt so good. So I definitely plan on putting those in the pack this time. It's small enough that it won't make any difference anyway, but I think it might be awesome. If nothing else, stick it in the bib and have it on your lower back for maybe a little bit might be fantastic.
Yeah, a little spa day out there. I like it.
Ooh, that sounds lovely.
I live by those hot hands and hot feet or whatever. They're almost always in my pack if there's a chance that it's going to be a little cool. I don't like cold weather, so I'm not ashamed to admit it. What about you, Asia?
So I wish that I think the stove thing is something that I don't know if I didn't need a stove, and my whole plan, which is what I pretty much did, was just eat gas station food for 2 days. That does work. I think that unbeknownst to me, I get sick of gas station food a little quicker than I had anticipated. I wish I'd had a little stove and just the coffee setup. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm like such a coffee drinker. And I remember my thought being, okay, I'm at Ratcliffe, and then when I need coffee in the morning, I'll just bike up to that gas station, but it's not super close. I can't remember. It's close, but like, it's not, I don't know. I think like if you're trying to drink coffee in the morning, it's like you want it then when you wake up. So yeah, I wish that I had brought coffee. I wish that I had brought a little stove to make that, and just maybe something to make in the morning, just so I wasn't eating like, I don't know, some sort of gas station food. Because I had the time and the space to carry more food. I guess the only thing, so that's something I didn't have that I wanted. Something I had, I'm trying to see how the best way is to frame this. I just was struggling really hard with my Garmin the whole time with the route. It messed me up really bad. I think it's more me than the Garmin, but I hated that Garmin on that trip. I wish I'd had a different computer. I was just so mad at it.
It's okay. This
I've
episode is not sponsored by Garmin, so
I know.
you're
I'm
fine.
like, do I talk about how much I hate my Garmin?
Sure. Just don't say anything bad about Chumba or Womb right now, and we'll be good.
Nothing wrong with Chumba or Womb.
Of course not.
Yeah, that was I mean, it put me in a pretty bad mood, the Garmin situation. But
I think most people with any kind of, I mean, I have a Wahoo, and that thing has gotten me lost more than it's gotten me found. I swear. But again, it also is probably just me. I probably listen to music and I mess something up. I don't know, but yeah, it's a good reminder to just, I guess, pay attention. And you get tired, and it's easy to, I don't know, miscue. Yeah. Harrison.
Well, no, this is totally off. I'm not going to bash on computers or anything, but one thing I brought this last year that I was so happy I did was some like packets of instant coffee, and it was like darn good coffee too. And like there were a couple times in the middle of the day where I was just, you just need that little pick me up, and it wasn't hot. I put it into a water bottle, but man, it hit the spot so right. It was so good. So if you're a consummate coffee drinker, like it sounds like we are, maybe it's nice to have in the pack just if you need that hit of caffeine, and you don't want to drink a sugary Red Bull or something like that.
Another thing I started doing too is carrying like a clean canteen, like water bottle. Like it's not a water bottle, it's a thermos, and I'll just put water in it all day. And then it also serves as like a coffee mug when I want that too. So it's exactly that. It's like I'll use it for water, and I'm not carrying like an extra coffee mug on top of that. And then like when I want it to be a coffee mug, it's a coffee mug too. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Just pretend it's an iced latte from your favorite coffee store. It's just a little warm, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Instant coffee, surprisingly, there's a lot of really good options out there now. All right, we'll move along so we can try to make our time cut off. Let's talk about the route. A lot of y'all are familiar with riding in Texas. I think East Texas kind of provides a little bit of a different riding experience than what you're used to, but we have a lot of people from out of state. We have international riders that are coming to ride this route. So, how would you describe the route to people? Is it easier or harder than you anticipated it to be? Anything that stands out to you about the route? Asia, I'll let you go first. I think it's your turn. I don't know. I'm just jumping around.
No worries. The route. So I guess like there's a lot to say about the route. I think that for those of you that aren't familiar with East Texas, it's, how do I say this? It's surprisingly beautiful. You may not think of East Texas as this like beautiful place, but it is. It's lovely. I like it. I mean, a lot of it on the Lowdown is kind of rolling, pretty smooth gravel roads. The time of year is just epic. There's no better place to be, in my opinion. It's just so pretty. Green fields and farmhouses and wildflowers, and hopefully the day's beautiful, or the whole time is just beautiful. I find the terrain fairly easy. And I mean, I guess one thing I'll just say is like, bike packing's not easy. It's just not, I guess you could make it easy, but generally speaking, bike packing's not an easy endeavor. Whether you're doing the Lowdown or the Showdown, it's challenging. And I think that's what makes it so much fun too. But I would say, especially because I live in New Mexico now and just deal with like much more kind of brutal terrain. Like it's really chunky and big rocks. Like I barely ride my gravel bike that I rode in Texas. That bike that I rode, I love that bike, that Cosmic Stallion, but I just don't really ride it much in New Mexico much. I need kind of a more aggressive bike for what I like to do now, especially when I bike pack. I just bike packed here in Tucson, and it's just so chunky and so much more elevation gain, and just it's tougher riding. So yeah, I would just say that I think that ETS, but I think that that's what makes ETS so great, is like whether you're a novice rider and you're just like kind of getting into bike packing, it's great. Like you're just out on these like rolling hills, pretty smooth gravel, some pavement. It's just really accessible. Again, like we had some mud. It sucked, but it's not like this brutal peanut butter mud that just destroys your day. It's doable. And it's really pretty. It's a pretty area. I don't know. Am I missing anything?
Oh, I think that's a great. I like how you said surprisingly beautiful. I agree. I agree. I putting the route together. I kind of surprise myself sometimes. I'm like, dang, this is nice out here, and it made me honestly appreciate Texas like a little bit more, So yeah, I love that.
Me
And
too.
I also go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I think because I only lived in Houston for 3 years and Texas for 3 years, and I've lived in the Southwest and like the Pacific Northwest. And I think, we don't often think of East Texas as like a biking destination, but I always tell people, like, you should do ETS. Like, it's so worth driving out there, flying out there, whatever you want. Get out there on your bike in East Texas. Like, it's so pretty in the spring. It's just really pretty. And it's a really pretty place. It's a lovely destination to be riding in the spring for sure.
No, I appreciate that. It's really surprised me how many people come from so far and wide, because like you said, Texas isn't really known to be like an epic cycling destination per se, and we don't have a lot of public land. But yeah, a lot of people have come from far and wide and really enjoyed East Texas. So it's been really cool to see. All right, Harrison, what about you? What are your thoughts on the route?
Yeah, I think Asia really nailed it. The terrain is so varied, right? Like if you're starting to get into this, like I mean, ETS was definitely my first bike camping race or whatever you want to call it. But like you get gravel, you get some beautiful rolling hills, you get a fair amount of pavement, you get out in the middle of nowhere for a time, and then you're going through a small town or what have you. Like you kind of get like a little bit of everything. It's never ever too challenging. It's certainly challenging, which is good. You don't want it to be too easy either, I suppose. But it really checks all the boxes of everything you would want to see. And it's at never one point so treacherous that you need to prepare for just that one section, right? You can kind of roll with what you got to a degree, take that with a grain of salt, but you really can kind of make it what you want it to be. And it's pretty forgiving to you as well. My first year doing it, I was certainly underprepared for it, and I was able to come out of it just fine because it forgave me and for my hubris and let me continue on the race.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it's not. I mean, it is designed to be kind of a gateway drug into the sport of bike packing, and the course is approachable. It's got resupply options. It's pretty, gets you out in the woods. So I like all that stuff. Vince, did you hear the question? We're talking about your thoughts on the route. Okay, so cool. Yeah, go
totally.
ahead.
I mean, I was also surprised. I mean, I've been here in Texas for a good long time, and I've done a handful of different events out in East Texas, but I hadn't spent so much dedicated time on the bike on back-to-back days there. And one thing that really struck me is that there was like a constant, like I felt like every 5 miles the color of the gravel changed. Maybe it's just like the sandy nature of it, and also because a lot of it was wet, so there was a lot of like great colors coming out. So visibly, the actual like ground you're riding on, I thought was really interesting. So that was kind of a good distraction, I guess, from just like how long you're riding. The rolling hills were really, really pleasurable too. A lot of farm life to see. at one point we got to like ride next to like a whole like herd of like huge horses, which was a pretty special moment. And yeah, so yeah, just overall, just rolling hills. The way I broke it up in kind of like those like 85, 95 mile an hour chunks. The third day was a lot more relaxed. Got some friends popping by over here. The third day was a lot more relaxed, so it was mostly, or quite a bit of it felt like it was downhill, or at least like a lot of false flat and much more mellow. The conditions also kind of hardened up because it wasn't so wet anymore, so it was like lightning fast by comparison to the other days. So that was Sunday coming back. So that kind of worked well too. It was a surprise. Like I didn't really spend a lot of time planning out the like elevation gain and all of that. I just more set the goal as like the mileage, and I guess seeing how it changed so differently. The three different chunks were so different from one another. I thought that was really interesting.
Nice. Good. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good overview and a description of the route overall. So to make this one kind of fast, because so my perception of the route is that it's about 60% gravel, 40% paved, and if it's not raining, 100% rideable. If it is raining or there has been rain, probably like 97 or 98% rideable. Does anybody disagree with that, or does anybody have a different opinion on the road surface?
I would say it's 100%. I never ever had to hike a bike across any of the 400 miles, even that first day when we did get some significant rainfall the morning of, right? So it maybe isn't your favorite riding, but I would say it's 100% rideable. Maybe that 1% would be that section where we were underwater, I suppose, for a moment, right?
Yeah,
I did have to get off the
that.
bike for that for just a moment. That's true.
Yeah.
Some people did ride that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bottom bracket never forgave me for that either.
Riding it was the way to go. I walked it. It was not fun.
Yeah, for people listening who don't know, last year, we don't know what happened, but some levee must have broke, or some water somehow became irrigated to and redirected over the road. And so on one of these Forest Service roads, I think it was about mile 55 or 60 onto the route, there was probably a good mile that was under what do you say, like anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of water with a current that's going across it.
I feel like there were a few deeper pockets if you made the wrong step too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went past my knees. I'm pretty short though, but
Yeah,
it was a little exciting.
It was deep. Yeah. We saw some people having a stumbling and almost falling. I think Todd, I remember Todd, he tried to ride through it and rode into a divot and fell over into it. So, but that was a rare thing. We hope that doesn't happen again. But I think, I was being pretty conservative with my estimate, but it's pretty darn close to 100% rideable. And as we talked about earlier, we had a variety of tire sizes on this route. So the route is very approachable from a riding standpoint. Not too hilly. There's going to be some hills, but it's forgivable to where you can just, to Harrison's point, kind of keep on going. So one question, how safe did y'all feel on the route from interactions with either locals or trucks, cars, vehicular traffic? How safe did y'all feel on the route? Harrison, go ahead.
Yeah, I never felt in danger. I mean, there was definitely roads I liked more than others because you wouldn't see any traffic. But I mean, Saturday we rode from 7 a.m. till 3 a.m. and there was never any one point on the road where I thought like, holy moly, this is sketchy. We shouldn't be here or whatnot. Like you're riding on live roads sometimes that are going to have traffic on them, right? So you need to kind of act accordingly and follow the rules and whatever that may mean. But the locals are always spectacularly kind and friendly and usually make you laugh, which in the middle of a day can be so like it can be worth more than you could even imagine, right? So never ever did I feel, unsafe, right? Other people might have different experiences. There were never any dogs that felt threatening. I never saw any boars or hogs or, cryptids or anything like that. So it was all a good time.
Good. All right, Asia, what about you?
I mean, I pretty much agree with everything Harrison just said. I think, and like generally speaking, the ride is set up really well. And it's, we had that escort leaving last time, which I thought was great. I think that's really cool that you did that. I did not have the escort the first time when I did the Slowdown. I never felt unsafe though. Like I guess I do a lot of like urban cycling and bike packing in general. And so ETS for me feels really, really safe. But yeah, anytime you get on your bike and you're interacting with traffic, which you won't a lot, but you will, just be really careful. There are, it's how it is. You got to be careful on your bike. I would just say the locals are really nice and people are helpful, and it's a really positive environment from everyone, from locals to other riders to just really positive people, really nice people. I will say that I don't like the dog situation, but I don't think that that's like an inherently, East Texas thing. Maybe it is. I don't know. I think it's another one of the lovely, it's kind of like the car thing, you get on your bike and these things can happen. I've never had a really bad experience with dogs, but I will say that I lean on the pretty anxious when I have to deal with the dog situation. I don't like it. Yeah.
We're going to touch more on dogs and take a slightly deeper dive into that in just a moment. So that's a popular question. So I'm going to pick back up on that one. Overall safety on the route as it pertains to just interactions with the locals and traffic and stuff like that, Vince?
Yeah, I found the locals, around all the folks I was with, everyone seemed very welcoming and kind of intrigued by what we were doing. I definitely also appreciated having the escort across the bridge, and a few participants brought that up while we were doing it, wow, I'm really glad we're doing this all together. Because that is a 2-lane kind of nowhere to go scenario. I wouldn't feel super comfortable doing that section otherwise. On the road, there's a handful of spots where there's, fast cars, but I felt like quite a bit of the route had shoulder, which was nice. And so I didn't feel super exposed. So overall, very, very comfortable. Also not a big fan of the dogs. So I sympathize with Asia for sure.
Yeah. Well, safety really is my number one priority. So when I was creating the route, if you have to go into towns, obviously, if you want resupply, they're unavoidable. And so I always just try to pick roads where there's a decent shoulder. But, people from coming out of state, I get a lot of questions what's Texas like? Is it safe there? Or people are going to try to run me off the road or whatever. And I haven't heard of any negative experiences yet with people riding the route, which I've really been grateful for. And if anything, what y'all are saying really echoes what I've heard every year that we do it. The locals are friendly. They're excited. They're nice to chat with you. They're curious. And we haven't had any issues with aggressive drivers. So knock on wood, let's keep that going. And let's talk about the dogs. Yeah, that is.
Can I just add on to that,
Please,
Patrick? Like,
you
I've
absolutely
bike
can.
packed all over the US, and I can totally see that sense of like, because Texas is such a like big car culture and probably doesn't have a strong reputation for cycling, but like I've never found the drivers, especially out in East Texas, like any more aggressive or hostile or mean, like there's than like other places that I've ridden. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. I appreciate that. So the dogs, I will say, like, I'm not the best person to ask because I just don't even really notice them. Like I like getting chased by them. I think it's like, it kind of like is mental stimulus. It's just kind of something fun that happens. And so
crazy.
I get this question a lot, and I don't think I'm the right person to ask. So I really want to lean on you guys. Vince, I want to start with you. I know that getting chased by dogs isn't your favorite either. So, yeah, what, like, give us an idea of like, how bad are the dogs? Like, how often are you getting chased? And did you find any tips for dealing with them?
So yeah, it wasn't as bad as I expected, given the chatter around it. But I personally have like a history with dogs and getting chased on my bike, and getting bit and whatnot. So I'm definitely on edge in that scenario. I was fortunate to ride kind of with someone most of the time, and so that I found to be, reduce a lot of that anxiety. So you can ride with someone else if you're nervous about it. That'll definitely like calm that down quite a bit, I feel like, because I feel like they're less likely to approach a group. Most of the dogs that we encountered that presented themselves as aggressive, they're really not. They're just trying to alert you that they're there. I don't want to encourage anyone not to be cautious around them, but my friend Austin, who we rode together the first day, he kind of had a really interesting approach of just like riding right to the dog, like the ones that are barking at you when you're approaching them. He would just ride right towards them, and he would even get off and stop and interact with them, which I was like, that's insane. And I would just kind of skirt by on the side because I was having none of that. But he had some type of like, I don't know if he was like hiding dog treats in his stem bag or something and not telling me, but he had some kind of like magic ability to whisper the dogs away. But yeah, I mean, from chatting with him, he said over the years, like he's found that if he just becomes the thing that's moving towards the dogs usually get confused. So my plan this year is to kind of, if they're behind me, I'll move away as briskly as needed. But if they're in front of me, I'm maybe going to be a little more like presenting myself as the bigger animal.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, Vince, that's exactly what I do. If it's barking at me, I just ride straight at it and I bark back at it, and they're like, what the heck, and I found that to be a really good approach too. Yeah, they don't, and you're bigger than they are. They're like, what is going on? Who did I pick a fight with right now? And I don't know if I want to have this fight. Yeah. All right, Asia, you talked about your dog experience. Like how bad were the dogs, and how did how bad were they? How did you manage it?
I guess I'm like, I don't know if I'm the right person to talk to because I'm like really anxious about this. Like this is like a big source of anxiety for me. I really don't like the dogs. I actually like really love dogs. So I'm trying to see how I'm gonna like best talk about this. I'm like the opposite maybe of you, Patrick. I'm like hyper aware. And I often ride with people that are like, don't care. They're going fast. They just, cruise through town. The dog's chasing them and they're like, whatever. But then I'm in the back and the dog by then is like oh, we're gonna get her. Like I'm the slow little one. So I feel like they're always like about to get me because I'm not going super fast. And when I did the lowdown last year, I don't remember any dog situation. It wasn't like a big deal. On the slowdown the year before, for some reason, I just interacted with a lot of dogs chasing me, and I don't love it, but I also get kind of used to it. I mean, it's not like this constant thing. It's often you're coming into town, and it's always when you're coming into town, but
Yeah.
and dogs will start chasing you. And I've tried a few different approaches. I think just do whatever makes you feel best. Like I'll talk about my approaches. It's either I yell at them to go home. I think if you say do it in a really stern voice but not like showing that you're scared, that can be really effective. Just yell go home, go home. I have had incidences, and this wasn't on ETS, but where I really felt like, yeah, the dog was freaking me out, and I'll get off my bike sometimes and I'll put the bike between me and the dog. Usually these dogs too, I would agree with what Vince said. I don't think they're really necessarily trying to hurt you. I think they see a bike and they're just like, oh, I want to chase that. Or that's kind of what they're doing. Rarely have I had
they're bored. They just want to say hi.
Yeah. Or they're just like, oh my God, that's fast, I'm going to chase it. So usually I'll put the bike between myself and the dog if I'm just starting to get really uncomfortable. And that usually they just get bored of me, or I'll try to talk to them. And I do really like dogs, and I'll see if I can pet one. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about the dog situation.
Yeah, I think that's another good approach, is just get off your bike and de-escalate the situation. So
yeah, it's still you versus a dog. You're probably bigger than it. You have a bike between you and the dog. It's they're not crazy. I've never had a crazy aggressive situation. So
yeah.
And then it definitely helps to be with other people too. I think that just kind of makes the stress level go up. I had a guy on when I did this slowdown. I was getting chased by this guy's dog, and he just comes running out of his home in his underwear. And it's the dog's chasing me. The guy in the underwear is just chasing the dog. And I'm like, this is funny. This is funny.
And that's why you got to go bikepacking, so you have those kinds of stories to share. You don't get that when you're driving down the road in your car.
You do not, no.
That's the good stuff right there. That's hilarious. All right, Harrison, what about you? How are the dogs for you?
Man, maybe I've just repressed it or something, but I can't remember any experience over the last 2 years other than maybe just being barked at, and maybe they're running along the side of the road. But I've definitely had weirder experiences outside of maybe Bastrop or something like that here in Austin. So nothing literally comes to mind. So I guess I can't speak to it, which I think is a good thing, that it never left enough of an impression, I guess.
It's funny. I've done the race for a few years now, and I get different feedback. Some people are like, there were hardly any dogs on the route, and other people are getting chased by dogs and saw quite a few. And I do wonder if it just depends on, did they get tired by chasing the other riders? Are they in for, a nap or eating food? What is that metric there? But it does seem to be a little bit per case by case basis. But yeah, we've never had anyone get bit by a dog. We've never had any, we've had aggressive barking dogs, but no dogs that's actually been a real issue so far. So, but there are dogs. So be prepared for some puppies to come and say hi to you. Does anybody know how hard it is, or how likely you are to find maple syrup in Texas? We have a Canadian that wants to know, and I feel like I see Canadian maple syrup on the counters. Is that a common thing? Does anybody know?
Yeah, you can find maple syrup. it's maybe not to the standard of a Canadian, but you can find maple syrup anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another interesting question that I thought was interesting. Are there any negative sentiments towards people who just want to ride the route and not race the route? My goal with this event is for it to be just come ride your bike any way you want to. As people who's experienced the route, do y'all agree with that? Is that, do you feel any pressure to go fast? Or I don't know, who wants to start? Harrison, you're nodding or shaking your head.
I think I'm the poster person for just riding it. Like just go out and have fun. Like I always just say, don't worry, just pedal. Like nobody is out there who's going to be like, I don't know, the stereotype of like some road rider who's like, you got to go fast all the time or whatever. I don't think there's a single person who's signing up for this who is thinking that. I mean, you think about like Dennis or any of the winners from years past, like we have beers at the end and we commiserate over our rides, and it's not about what place you came in, what your time it was at all. It's just literally so cool to be out there with all these other people. So to whomever put that question in, if you're worried about that, just come ride. I'll be out there just zooming along as well. So just come have fun with us.
Yeah. Anybody have anything to add to that?
I was going to say, that's like the beauty of just ultra racing community in general is, you can be very focused on a time, but you can also be very focused on an experience. And it doesn't really matter what angle you come at it, just participating in it is what's fun. So I can't imagine anybody on the route not supporting someone else in general. Like the atmosphere is so welcoming. I think the mileage kind of wards away people who maybe have a more negative approach to what it entails to accomplish it. So,
yeah, well said. Asia, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, just pretty much that. It's just a really, really positive environment. You get people that train for it and really have like their own personal goals that I think do really push themselves. But mostly, well, I don't know. You get all types out there, and but I would say the one consistent is that people are really nice. I mean, this is gonna sound cheesy. I have like now solid friends that I've made through ETS. I mean, that I go bike packing with now. Like I've made friends through that event that I now do other things with, other bike packing events. So I love the community so much, and I love it's just a really positive environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that from all y'all. It means a lot to me. My goal with the event and my tagline for the podcast is ride your damn bike. And, any way, any bike, just come and enjoy it with a bunch of other like-minded people. And the entire atmosphere that I want to create around the event is that anybody is welcome. We're going to celebrate you, whether you make up your own route, but get back, or you attempt it, or whether you come in first or last. Like it really doesn't matter. And that's the culture and community that I want to create around this event. So I really appreciate that feedback as people who have participated in it. That makes me really happy. All right. Let's wrap it up. Asia's got to do a long drive, and we all got stuff to do. So we're 30 days away from East Texas Showdown 2024. What event, if any, are you doing this year? And are you ready? Are you feeling prepared? Harrison, where are you at?
Man, I never feel prepared, but that's like half the fun. Like just to show up and do your best. So I ride 150 miles every week, just commuting. So hopefully that can carry me to a good chunk of it. Yeah.
Wow. 150 just commuting. How far away do you live from work?
It's 15 miles each way, the route I take. So it's 30 every day and then 5 days a week. So.
Oh, that's epic. And what route are you doing this year?
Showdown. My father, shout out to Harry himself, is doing the Lowdown. So I don't know. It might come the day of doing it. I'll be like, man, I just want to ride a bike with my dad. So we'll see.
How old is he?
He's 65 plus, and he's a shredder, so he's going to be out there. Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, that's wonderful, man. It's a family. It really is a family. What about you, Vince? You're doing the Slowdown this year, right?
No, I did
Showdown. I can't even get my own races straight. Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah, Slowdown last year, Showdown this year, which is a nice progression, kind of on the goals too. So, I've done that much mileage before, but not so condensed a time. So it's going to definitely be a challenge, probably physically, but also just with how I kind of normally do my pace of the day, taking it a little easier. I'm going to have to maybe push myself a little harder than I'm used to on this kind of event. But yeah, I'm intimidated by the distance and the timeline. And we have a lot of racers on our team who that kind of distance is no big deal, but I'm not one of them. So it's intimidating to me, but I'm excited to go for it and push myself, trying to work towards it and just increase my overall riding and the elevation of my riding each week to kind of prepare, not like a high intense scheduled training regimen, but it's not what my life allows scheduled. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, man. I relate to you. I talk to a lot of people. You work with a lot of people that are super fast. I talk to a lot of people that are super fast, and I feel like they're doing something different. But that's everybody's on their own journey, and that's one of the beautiful things about it. And one of the things I like about this event is just bringing everybody together, where you're going fast or slow, and no matter what your motivation is, just coming together and doing it together. Asia, you've done it twice. Are you coming back this year, or did you skip it this year?
No, sadly, I won't be making it this year.
Any FOMO?
Yeah, definitely. I just finished a bike packing trip yesterday, and with my friend Emily, who will be doing it, and who I've ridden with it before, and we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to miss being out in East Texas with you guys.
You think you'll come back again one day?
I would love to. I don't know if there will ever be a West Texas showdown event, but would definitely come to that one, as it is also closer to where I'm living now. But that would be awesome.
It's going to happen. We're shooting for February of 2025 is the goal. But cool. I will tell you that it's going to be, you have to earn an entry either by completing East Texas Showdown or a Central Texas Showdown, or I'm going to come up with some other rules. If you've done Tour Divide, or if you've done the Italy Divide, if you've done a big race, because I don't want to make it prohibitive for people who live overseas, for example. I got to thinking about it, and it's because at first I just wanted you to have to qualify by completing either one of the showdowns. But then for people across the seas, and it might just not be feasible for people. So, and that's partially to kind of make it fun. Also, as a way to prepare people for West Texas, which is a much more rugged and arid environment. It's way more harsh. And then also, to me and anyone who lives in Texas, or anyone that's been to Big Bend, Big Bend and West Texas is a really special place. And so I really like the idea of kind of respecting the land by not taking 100, 200, 300 people out there, and keeping it small and intimate, and having just less impact on the land. So we're probably I think max will open it up to 50 people. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I get a lot of questions. So that gave me a good opportunity to talk about it. So, all right. Well, I'll let you guys all get on with your day. I really appreciate everyone hopping on, sharing their perspectives. Did I miss anything that anybody else wanted to share or say about the route or the event or anything? Or should we just tie a nice little bow on this?
If I can say, if anybody is reticent or worried about riding or whatever, I promise you, probably everyone on the screen has been there as well, but like I think our Instagram handles have been a part of this too. And you can feel free to reach out to myself, or I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I'm here to console as much as I can. I promise I've cried on the route myself, so like it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Happy
you can
tears
reach
and
out to me
sad
too.
tears.
Both.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, happy and sad tears. Yeah, all the tears, all the emotions. And if I talked over Asia, she said you could reach out to her too.
Yeah, likewise.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you, Harrison and Vince. We'll see you in about 30 days. Time to get those pedals pushing. And yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone, man. It's really a lot of fun to see everyone come back. And it's really cool that so many people come back every single year, and it really builds to like what Asia was saying. I mean, you really do make friends and it feels like a family. So I'm excited to see everyone out there. And all right, that's it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
See you later. Get to
Bye,
training. Bye. All right, everyone. Well, we let our esteemed panel go, and now I'm going to tackle the rest of the questions myself as soon as I can get my computer to get on the program. Come on, computer. The rest of these questions, I think I can handle and try to get through them relatively quickly. The way our survey thing works is it doesn't assign the name to the person who asked the question. So I'm just going to go through these real quick with no idea who actually asked them. The first question was about dot watching and the tracker. So this year we are using Follow My Challenge USA as the tracking service. And if you have your own device, then you have to pay a rental fee that's $22 to basically use their service. And you can find that on the bike reg the East Texas Showdown bike registration page. If you need to rent a device, the cost is $77, I believe. And you can find that again on the East Texas Showdown registration page. One note about the trackers is they recommend and use cellular-based GPS tracking devices, which is different from previous years where we've done the Spot Gen 3s. The Spot Gen 3s are great in a lot of ways, but every year we do have issues with them. We'll oftentimes have to like run a new device out to somebody because theirs isn't working for one reason or another. And these cellular devices are supposed to be a lot more accurate. And one nice thing about East Texas Showdown, the route, is that by and large, there's cell phone service across almost all the route. And for these trackers, they actually pull from any cellular network. So it doesn't just run on AT&T or Verizon. Any single tower, it can pick up a signal and send a ping. It also allows for two-way communication. And so we're going to be trying those this year. The only downside to the cellular-based trackers is that they do not have the SOS signal installed in them. So if that's a feature that you really want, you could still get your own Spot tracker or Garmin InReach. The Spot Gen 3 trackers on eBay right now, you can pick them up for like $40 or $50. They're not that expensive. Of course, you do have to activate those. So if that's something you really want, you can get one of those. However, like I said, for the most part, the route has very good cell phone service. So if you do ever run into an issue, you can always just call emergency services. And as far as we had some questions about dot watching, and you can absolutely dot watch on Follow My Challenge USA. We're going to be providing a link to that. Their interface is really neat. It has tons of map layers and wind layers and all kinds of data that you can play with as a dot watcher. So really excited about giving them a shot this year. I've heard really good things. I know Andrew Honorma used them over on the Arkansas High Country route, and I talked to him and he had a good experience with them. So we're going to be giving them a shot this year. One other note while we're talking about rescues, if rescues are needed, so there's a couple different kind of rescues. One is you're in an emergency, and if that's the case, please call 911 for any emergency needs. However, Bikes or Death will have rescue driver pickups. We have volunteers that will be available to pick up riders if they can't finish the route, if they get injured but don't need immediate attention, or if you have a mechanical or for whatever reason, if you do need picked up and rescued off the course, we will have people available. One thing to keep in mind there is that these are volunteers and the course spreads over 400 miles. We have over 250 riders. And so our response times are going to be varied. Do we have a rider in your or a driver in your vicinity that can come and pick you up? So if you do call us to come pick you up, we're coming, but it might take us a little while to get there. It just depends again on where the drivers are, how many people they're picking up, how many people call to get picked up. There's a bunch of variables whenever it comes to this. As we get closer to the race, we'll provide a number or two that you can call during the race, and that will be if you need to get picked up or if you have questions, concerns, anything. If you need to get in contact with anyone over at Bikes or Death staff, we're going to be sending out those numbers. We'll provide those again at the race meeting prior to the East Texas Showdown. And one other note on getting picked up, if you do need to get picked up, we recommend at least a $20 tip to your driver. Again, these are volunteers spending their own dime and time to come and rescue you. So we recommend you at least give them a $20 tip. If you want to feel like you can tip more, I'm sure that they would appreciate that. So please keep that in mind. The next question is, I plan on camping behind the Bullet. I know it's first come, first serve. Based on previous years, how quickly does it fill up? I'm planning on getting there around 10 to 11 p.m. I assume that means on Thursday. So yes, we do have primitive camping that's available behind the Bullet Grill. We have a pretty large area. I think it's about 4 or 5 acres. It has yet to get filled up. Last year, we had 200 riders registered. I think we had about 180 show up. I'm not sure exactly how many stayed behind the Bullet. And honestly, this is a question mark as we expand the field to a little over 250 this year. And so we're really going to be kind of flying by the seat of our pants. But our goal is to pack anyone that wants to camp behind the Bullet an opportunity to camp there. We're going to have parking lot attendants that will help you know where to park. And the general guideline is take up the smallest footprint possible. This isn't luxury camping accommodations. You're going to be packed in there like sardines. So if you want to bring a vehicle, some people want a car camp, that's fine. Some people have vans, that's fine. But no big vans, no big RVs, nothing that wouldn't fit within a normal parking space at a grocery store or something. So we have to be mindful of the space that we're taking up and really try to accommodate everybody that is trying to camp there. And just be patient with us as we figure that out and navigate that on the fly. Obviously, if you get there first, it'll be really easy to find a spot. As we go throughout the day, it might become a little bit more challenging, but we just ask for patience and everybody to work with us. And please work with our parking lot attendants to find out exactly where to park and just be mindful of everybody else's space. And what I mean by that is cram right into them because, again, we don't know how many people we can fit. And we're really pushing the limits of the capacity of this facility, which is exciting, but it also means we're going to be learning on the fly. But we do want to accommodate everybody we can. I sent out a survey. We've had about 112 people respond out of the 250 or so. And about 70% have indicated that 70% of the people that have responded have indicated that they are planning to camp behind there or might camp there. So that's what we're dealing with, and we're going to see how it goes. Next one, the draft route has a small segment at mile 305 with a note that there's an aggressive dog that needs to be rerouted around. Is it still a fact, and is there going to be a reroute at that segment? Yes, actually, Hannah Simon was the one who told me about this dog, and apparently, Hannah Simon is a very seasoned rider. If you're not familiar with her, and she was very put off by this dog and strongly recommended that I route around it. And so I actually found what I think is a better route, a safer route. It takes us off of a faster moving 55 mile an hour, which everybody knows nobody's going 55 miles an hour. So it's like a no shoulder 55 mile an hour road that is taking us off of, and I think taking us on a much safer route. That is the only part of the route that I still need to scout. And maybe by the time that this podcast comes out, I'll have actually scouted that, but I'm planning on getting out there very soon. And one way or another, I will finalize the routes and update everybody here very shortly. In general, the routes are primarily unchanged from last year. We are still going in a counterclockwise fashion, and really no changes to the route, so to speak, other than routing around this one aggressive dog. That is the only change that I'm planning for this year. And I have no reason to be concerned with that reroute. I think it's going to be totally fine, but I still got to go put eyeballs on it just to make sure. Next question, do Lowdown riders need a tracker? Yes, everybody who's participating, doesn't matter what route you're on, is required to have a tracker. It is a requirement to do this race. We last year did not require the Lowdown riders to carry a tracker because it's kind of more of a ride rather than a race. However, just from a safety and logistics standpoint, we quickly identified that it is much better for us as the race organizers to know where everybody is. It allows us to kind of keep track of everyone, make sure everybody's progressing along, potentially identify any issues that could arise. And it also lets us know if you're still on course, because we have so many people that come out. Not everybody is going to come and check in, and especially on Lowdown, if you don't have a tracker to turn in, we found a lot of people, we didn't know if they were still on the course or not. We had no idea unless we just saw them and we knew your name and we knew you were on the Lowdown and all this kind of stuff. And so it really is a way for us to just manage and be good stewards and making sure we're looking out after everybody. We know everybody's probably very comfortable being in the woods and doesn't want to be babysat by us. But just as event organizers, it's super important that we can account for everybody. We know where everybody is, and we know if and when you're on course, you're off course, you're done with the ride, and all that kind of stuff. So this year we are requiring everybody to have trackers. Next question, is there a guide for the Lowdown route that shows resupply stops? Yeah, so, all of the routes, all the draft routes are currently available at texasshowdownseries.com. You can go to the East Texas Showdown page and all 3 routes are there. I've added POIs for many of the resupply spots, mini camping spots, private camping spots, hotels. I would say that the Showdown route is kind of like the master route. It's the one that I have the most POIs on. So it can be a good idea. Like if you're doing the Lowdown, pull that one up and then cross-reference it with the Showdown and see if there's any additional resupply points or camping points that you may not be familiar with. They might be represented on that map. But in general, this race and these rides do follow the ethos of solo self-supported. And so I do provide some POIs, but I highly encourage everybody to be responsible for their own ride, doing your own research. And when you're route planning, that oftentimes means zooming in on the map, looking at specific areas that you're thinking about camping in, areas that you might want to resupply in. If it's a town, sometimes I only put 1 or 2 resupply options on there. There could be 20, there could be 50, but oftentimes I'll just put a resupply option there just so you kind of cues you in to look in that area. And then from there you can expand, look at their hours of operation, make sure they're still in business. We have people that will often call the shops and make sure, verify their hours of operation. So if there's any areas of concern, if there's a resupply point that's really critical to you, do your own homework, do your own research, and make sure that you verify that information before you get out there. That's the best time to prepare for resupply options, for camping options, is when you're sitting at home and not when you're tired and hungry and potentially cold and wet out on the route. That is not a fun time to be route planning. But as you heard in today's episode, all the routes have really good resupply options. So as long as you're mindful of where they're at and taking advantage of them, you really shouldn't run into any issues with food and water. That is something that with good planning, you can definitely take care of and manage pretty easily. Someone wants to stay at the Bullet Grill from Wednesday through Sunday. Will that be okay? Yeah, absolutely. The people at the Bullet Grill are absolutely fantastic. I mean, they are so easy to work with. They are so accommodating. They have been just wonderful to us, and I really appreciate them. Like, honestly, it would be impossible to do this route without all their support. With that said, they would have no issue with you camping in the back. If you get there early, it would be a good idea just to walk into the restaurant and notify one of them. They're all very familiar with the bike race. I have another route that's in the Sam Houston National Forest called the Sam Houston Restaurant Tour that's on bikepacking.com. And the start and finish line is the Bullet Grill for that one. Then obviously we have the East Texas Showdown that is hosted there. So they are very familiar and accommodating to cyclists. And so, yeah, absolutely no problem camping there. Just notify the guys. That way they know what you're doing. Is there going to be a shower at the Bullet Grill? There should be. I know we had one last year. It was great. I think the year before that, we had like a hose that was out there. And then the next year we had a little shower that they had built for us. And I talked to Chris about it, and he says that they're planning on having a shower. So I don't know exactly what that means, but there should be a shower, or at least a water hose, for sure, at least a water hose where you can douse yourself down. But I think that we'll probably have a shower. Like I said, the Bullet always comes through, so I don't really worry too much about that. So we had somebody that wants to know how many miles per day to average on the Lowdown if you're wanting to finish by Saturday night. So that one's pretty straightforward because the route is 164 miles. I would recommend getting to the group camp that is at Ratcliffe Lake Recreation Area, and that comes at mile 76 on the route. So if you do that in your first day, that leaves you 88 miles on your second day. So a little bit longer of a push on the second day. But I think, like I said earlier on in this episode, of course, you don't have to. You can break it up into doing it 3 days and really, take your time, enjoy it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But one nice opportunity with the Lowdown is if you've never put in big days on the bike, 70, 80, 90 mile days, this is a good opportunity to try that. And one benefit of doing the Lowdown in 2 days is that you can come and camp with us at the Lowdown group campsite. So if you're not aware, we do have a sponsored group campsite, which basically means Bikes for Death will show up with some beer, and we'll bring some firewood, and we'll hang out and shoot the shit and have a good time. So that, I hope, is good incentive for a lot of y'all to make that first push on day one and get all the way out there to Ratcliffe Lake to come and hang out with us. Okay. And actually, I think that's all the questions that we had that we didn't address with the panel. But I just had a few that I wanted to go over with y'all. Oh, actually, there was one more question. We had another question about the neutral rollout over the bridge. And so if you haven't done any of the routes before, all of the routes start at the same time. And this year, we're going to push it back, and the start time is going to be at 8 a.m. because every year in the past, we started it at 7 a.m. And every single year, there's a pretty sizable group that is like just scrambling at the last few minutes to try to get food, go to the bathroom, get all their gear on their bike, like whatever it is. There's just a lot of chaos in the morning. And so to make it a little bit easier to manage from an event standpoint, and then also hopefully making it a little bit easier on y'all, I'm going to start it at 8 a.m. and we all roll out as a group. We line everybody up. So we'll line up Showdown first, then Slowdown, and then we line up the Lowdown. And we ride as a group for the first 8 miles. And the reason for that is that there is a 2-mile long bridge over Lake Livingston that comes at about mile 5.5 or 6 on the route. And it's not too bad if you're like crossing it by yourself, but when there's a huge group of cyclists, it's a lot safer to have an escort. So last year we had a police escort. I've contacted the police department and I'm waiting to hear back to hear if they're going to be providing that support or not. If they do, great. If they don't, then we're going to use our personal vehicles. And the way it's going to work is we're going to do the neutral rollout. There will be a lead vehicle and there will be a follow vehicle with their hazards on. We're going to ride the first portion on the shoulder of the road, and we will not get above 10 miles an hour. We'll try to average closer to 8 miles an hour for that first 6 miles or so. Then when we get to the start of the bridge, we're going to pause briefly and just make sure that everybody is caught up and we're not all slinkied out. And once everybody is together, then we're going to go over the bridge. Again, we'll go at an 8 to 10 mile an hour pace. After the bridge is over, the front vehicle is going to peel away, and that will signify the official start of the route. That will come again at about mile 8 on the route. There's a wide shoulder, so once you get past that lead vehicle peels away, it's game on. So that's the plan to get over the bridge. And I will be updating y'all as to whether or not we have emergency services or if we're going kamikaze this year. But I'm not aware of any laws against doing that. It's registered vehicles with their flashers on. Bikes are allowed to be on the road. So it might be a little bit inconvenient to traffic, but I would much rather inconvenience traffic for 10 minutes rather than inconvenience or put any of y'all in an unsafe situation. What else? Did I miss anything? I think that's it. Again, like I said, towards the end of the panel discussion, we're about 30 days away from the start. So I don't know about y'all, but I'm getting excited and nervous, as I'm sure many of y'all are. I'm nervous in a different way. Just hosting this many people is like, it's a big deal. You want it to go well. You invite all your friends to a party and you really want it to go well. And I really am looking forward to this. It's always a great time to introduce people to this route for the first time, this part of Texas for the first time. And if you've been here before, you already know that just the community surrounding this event is so great. I think it's one of the things that makes the East Texas Showdown such an epic event is the community that surrounds it. And then, of course, like we said on today's episode, the route is really beautiful. It shows you a different part of Texas than what I think even most Texans know about. So it's really exciting. I'm so excited to have y'all out there in about 30 days. So get to training. If you have any questions, a great resource is the Texas Showdown chat room on Facebook. Again, if you go to Facebook and type in Texas Showdown chat room, that's a great resource. So if you have questions, of course, you can reach out to me. But another great resource is to post those up on Facebook. And if you have that question, there's a good chance that somebody else has that question. And I really love the community support aspect of that. So that's a great resource. We'll also be following up with more emails with just more information that is important as we get closer to the event. So be on the lookout for those. And until then, don't forget, go ride your damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgot. faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.